everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland Retrospective here on the SPM Crew Podcasting Network. And this is my weekly show where my guest and I each pick a film related in some shape or form, and hopefully by the end of this episode, you'll have two films to check out. And feeling that summer vibe here in the dead of winter, and some coming of age stories. And joining me for this episode is my frequent collaborator, Jeff. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, anytime.
And you had chosen The Kings of Summer from Jordan Vaught Roberts, and I had picked The Way Way Back from Nat Faxon and Jim Rash. And so let's dive into The Kings of Summer. This was one I hadn't seen before, but was kind of shocked by how many familiar faces I saw in this movie from 2013. But Jeff, what were your general thoughts on The Kings of Summer?
So I watched this movie like right around the time it came out on VOD. I think it came out in VOD or around like 20 like late 2013 and it was in my phase where I was right out of college, from film school, and I was seeing all these like cool little indie movies that, no one had really ever heard of, and I was just so into it. And this movie just kind of caught me right at the right time because it was right at the end of summer. It was starring a bunch of just like kind of nobodies, and then a few random people that I knew from other things like Nick Offerman and Alison Brie. But then you realize as you're, today that I'm like, there are so many people in this movie. Like
Mhm.
every character is a famous person now. And it was like I mean, just the name, like the lesser ones: Mary Lynn Rajskub, Thomas Middleditch, Lily Reinhart from Riverdale fame. She's like a small bit character that's got like two lines. And then you've got like the Mark Evan Jackson, you've got a young Aaron Moriarty way before her
Mhm.
boys fame. And even the three leads have all kind of had their own spotlight at one point. And I mean, it's kind of crazy to see all of this star power in this one movie.
Mhm. Well, yeah, because and that was one of the things that stuck out to me. Like, I really, really loved Nick Robinson from specifically from Love Simon, and that
Hmm.
was a film that really struck me. And he is obviously at like the core of this film. There is a very tumultuous father-son relationship
Yeah.
that is a big driving force, and it's it's very challenging because there's some scenes in here that Vault Roberts really ratchets up that tension. And
Hmm.
you have one game night that turns absolutely brutal. And then, which is also echoed later in the film, showing that Joe, our protagonist, and his dad, Frank, have a little too much in common. Feel like, and Joe's obviously like a young guy who does not want to believe that he's
Hmm.
like his father in any way, shape, or form. And like Nick Offerman is like oppressively just a dick in this movie at times. And I enjoy seeing that character evolve and also seeing how Joe evolves over the course of the film.
And that was kind of something you mentioned before we started recording, was that like how much of a jerk Nick Offerman is. I'm like, it's almost I would honestly even say that his son Joe is even worse at most times, because I mean, yeah, Nick Offerman's kind of being a jerk, but he's kind of just being like just uh, what I would assume is just like a regular like jerk parent. Like
Mhm.
he's not hitting him, he's not,
Yeah.
doing any kind of physical abuse. He's just using like funny words to just kind of break him down. And it's not like anything like, and then Joe's retaliation is like stealing all of his money and like, wasting all the hot water. Like those are just like annoying jerk teenager things that like any parent would just be like a jerk to their kid with their words just for doing that.
Well, and I think the interesting thing about the film is what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Hmm.
Was like Joe, this this kid that broke his father down, or was his father just in this place that kept antagonizing his son, pushing him to these places? And the thing is, they both have very similar personalities, where it's just like neither of them are functioning and processing things in a healthy way.
Hmm.
And obviously, like you have Alison Brie's character, who's like not in the film a lot, but she's kind of like that medium in the middle. And it's very
Hmm.
interesting seeing how Joe struggles with his relationships outside of his paternal relationship. And you see that in his relationship with Patrick, who's his best friend, Gabriel Basso, who of Hillbilly Elegy fame.
Well,
And
I was gonna say of Juror Number Two fame, because I was watching this movie and I was like, where have I seen this guy before? And then I looked him up and I was like, oh, he's in Juror Number Two. Like he plays like the guy that's on trial.
oh my God, I did not recognize him at all thinking about
Yeah.
that. But the how you see their relationship deteriorate. And
Hmm.
there's a very specific scene that's used very well to echo how Joe is turning into his father and doing the same kind of antagonistic things in a really petty way. Because,
Hmm.
like, if you're like taking out your aggression on people in a game of Monopoly by just being a
Yeah.
complete asshole, there's something petty going on there. And there's a lack of maturity and processing. And it's very interesting because Patrick acts like he's from a similar situation as Joe. He's so fed up with his parents, but his parents are just
Like
weird.
good people.
Yeah, they're like quirky, good people.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because sometimes it's hard for me to see Megan Mullally being a nice person because of Parks and Rec. Because I just automatically think of Tammy too.
Hmm.
But like her and Mark Evan Jackson are genuinely good parents and legitimately care about their son. They're just weird, like
Hmm.
a little bit weird, and not even like a strange, like they're like parent weird. Like they do like silly parent
Yeah.
stuff.
Like
And
they're kind of like clingy in a way to their
mhm,
son, you know?
mhm. And obviously that pushes him away, and he wants to get away from that. And then you have Moises Arias's character who's just like a little scary. Just like this
Yeah.
kid's like dead inside. The
But
the
this is kind of an era where like you have like kind of one of these like coming of age films where you have like the main male lead, his best friend, and then like a weird like sidekick sort of like I mean I'm thinking back to like Project X when it came out like the year
Mhm.
before this, and like that kind of had like one of those like weird like like the main character, the crazy the crazy like best friend, and then like the weird sidekick kind of guy, and so
Mhm.
like and that was kind of following in that same mold this was.
Well, and there's a couple of legitimately hilarious moments where like he's staring down Thomas Middleditch and he does not know how to process it.
Yeah.
Which at this point, like, how famous was Thomas Middleditch? Like,
I don't think he was very famous.
yeah, because this was before Silicon Valley, right?
Way, yeah, way before. I don't think Silicon Valley started until like 2016, I think.
Yeah. So like it's really funny just seeing him as a random deputy in this small town.
Hmm.
But like it's I think the things that I enjoyed most about this film was watching Joe and his father evolve over the course of the film and
Yeah.
realize it's like we need to deal with life in a different way. And like it would be in a lesser film, you would probably feel like, I don't care about these cutbacks to the parents. I want to be with the main characters. But like honestly, like the cutbacks to Nick Offerman's character were really interesting because one, like the whole wonton thing.
Hmm.
And they have like those little gags where it's just like this wonton is way too big. And that was Kumail, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, Kumail Nanjiani, yeah, another big name that just like Just
delivery
comes in
guy.
as like literally, this whole movie is just full of people that you have no idea were going to end up being as big as they were.
Hannibal Buress, bus driver. Tony
Oh, that's
Hale, bus
right. Tony Hale.
passenger.
Oh my God, I forgot about those two.
And it's just so random. But and it's so interesting because Walt Roberts crafts a beautiful film. Like this really captures that summer energy.
Hmm.
And it's so weird that obviously he started off in smaller works, but now it's like he did Kong Skull Island. And I guess I haven't seen it doesn't look like he's done a whole lot besides a TV show You're the Worst since
Hmm.
then. But you know, all those indie directors got scooped up by big studios to do a big studio movie. But it's
Yeah.
interesting because this is lost in the wilderness kind of film, similar to Kong Skull Island. It's just very different habitat, and there's not giant apes and stuff like that. But honestly, that snake was scary. That climax of the film was a shocking moment and a very
Hmm.
uncomfortable one for sure. Um, I guess I also really liked Aaron Moriarty. I don't think the character had a whole lot to do,
Yeah.
writing wise, but I do think that she did a nice job. She had good chemistry, I think, with Robinson and Basso. And in general, there was a lot of things that I really enjoyed about this film. And I'm glad you picked it because I don't think I ever heard of this, to be
Yeah,
honest.
it's
So,
kind of just one of those like hidden gem films that I was like that like really no one's ever heard of, and like especially at the time I was like, oh, like you gotta check this movie out, it's really good. And it was, again, it was along the same lines of the movie we're about to talk to next, where like just a
mhm,
small little indie film with a bunch of stars in it that were gonna end up being big, and then no one ever heard of it. And I was like, these movies need to get more exposure.
mhm. Well, and unlike the next one we're going to talk about, I feel like this one definitely did not get that kind of attention because I feel like, I guess, before I get too ahead of myself, do you have anything else you wanted to add about the Kings of Summer?
No, no. I love this movie. I mean, it's been in my life for a really long time now, and I always try to recommend it to people whenever I can.
There you go. Well, then segue it into the way, way back, which I feel like this got that an indie film that caught on a little bit kind of
Oh
thing
yeah, for
and
sure.
got a lot more attention, which also a very interesting combination of Nat Faxon and Jim Rash making films together. Because and what obviously they've gone on to do, because obviously Jim
Hmm.
Rash blew up because of Community. Dean
Yeah,
and
I think Nat Faxon and Jim Rash were like they were like groundlings students together, and that's how they kind of got paired, and then they've just been like partners since.
I'm just looking at, didn't realize worked on the Descendants screenplay.
Oh yeah. I think, and I yeah, I was gonna say I think that was like their biggest. They won the Oscar for that, I think.
It's so good. I love that movie.
Me too.
But we're here to talk about the way, way back, which also has a famous comedic actor who's playing a jerk, and that's Steve Carell as Trent. Except Trent's irredeemable because Trent's an asshole.
Yeah, yeah, Steve Carell playing a big old asshole.
Which he's so passive aggressive. Like I wanted to jump through the screen and just slap the shit out of Trent so many times in this movie because he just has that vibe. And it's just
Yeah.
you're so incredibly unlikable. But this is one of those awkward kind of mixed family situations where our main character Duncan, played by William James, and his mother, Tony Collette, she's dating Trent. And that was his daughter, right?
Yes.
That
Yeah.
so
The teenage girl was Steve Carell's daughter, and
yeah,
then Liam James was Tony Collette's son.
yeah. So they go off to summer getaway, staying in this house. Have Allison Janney as their sloppy neighbor. Um, and you know, you have Duncan as his character who's really struggling to connect. He feels very isolated. He obviously does not like Trent, and he shouldn't, because Trent's a piece of crap. We don't like Trent here. Um, and he winds up getting this opportunity to work at a water park run by Sam Rockwell and his ragtag crew of Maya Rudolph, Nat Faxon, and Jim Rash. But Jeff, what are your general thoughts on the way back?
I like this more than the Kings of Summer, just because it's definitely more fun,
Hmm.
and I think it's even more relatable in some ways
Hmm.
than the Kings of Summer, because it's just, we've always kind of felt like the Liam James character at one point in our lives, where we've always just been like, you know we go somewhere, we have no friends, and then we go somewhere, and then we make friends, and we end up having a great time. And then having the secret, love interest of the next door neighbor girl.
Hmm.
That's always something that we've had when we were teenagers and stuff. So it's just a really fun movie for me, that watching it, because I love this is the first time I've seen Steve Carell in something that wasn't The Office. Or
Hmm.
no, that's not true, actually. The first time I've seen Steve Carell in a role like this, where he was
Yeah.
just kind of just a huge jerk. Very interesting to see, it's kind of nice to see him play stuff like this every once in a while, because you only really associate him with The Office and like 40-Year-Old Virgin
Anchorman.
and stuff like that. Yeah, Anchorman. It's nice to see him play these like kind of, assholey roles, like even in like The Big Short and
Yeah.
The Morning Show. Like
So,
those are just
yeah.
very big departures from his normal shtick.
Yeah, because this was the first time I feel like Steve Carell was extremely unlikable in like a big
Hmm.
movie. Because
Oh, for sure.
Trent is a philanderer, he's a gaslighter, a
Yeah,
liar. He's just an all-around scummy human being. But I like the performance from Liam James, who I don't know if he's really. It looks like he was in Psych before
yeah.
this. It
He
looks
plays
like
the young Sean Spencer in Psych.
like he perfectly plays this awkward kid well. Like
Hmm.
Duncan's awkward, and his whole entire journey is opening up and getting to break dance the water park. And I love every second they're at that water park. Maybe except for
Yeah,
there's one particular gag that Nat Faxon does that is kind of
yeah.
scummy and
Yeah, it's
has
not
aged
necessarily
poorly.
something that would yeah, it's not necessarily something you could pass off today, but yeah, it's
No,
I
definitely
remember it being I
something.
remember it being funnier at the time, but
Yeah,
now when you look back on it with, 2015 glasses on, it's not as funny.
yeah. And it's stupid shit that you would expect a bunch of dudes to do on a water park. So it's
Oh
kind of like
yeah.
and just like Faxon just seems like that kind of guy, which is wild to me because the most recent thing that I've been watching them in is Loot on Apple, and he's kind of like the straight laced goofy guy. So it was
Hmm.
weird seeing him as just like this she kind of like lifeguard guy. And then Jim Rash is funny. I love the dynamic with Maya Rudolph, but like Sam Rockwell steals the hell out of this movie because he's just so
He's
damn
he's
funny.
probably he's probably the best in the movie.
He just is so funny, so charming, like that lovable kind of F up that you're just like,
Hmm.
oh, what a rascal. He doesn't want to
Yeah.
do anything to run his water park, but he's just so damn charming. Like the way
Yeah,
that
like he's not responsible in any way, shape, or form, but you can't help but love him.
yeah, it's just like, I wouldn't want to work for this guy. It's not a very good manager. But you know what?
Hmm.
He's just damn charming and fun to be around. And honestly, I think one of my favorite moments with him is the dynamic he has with like the little kid with the eye patch. Because like everybody else is
Yeah.
like handling with him with kid gloves. And then he just goes in messing with
Hmm.
him and having some fun with him. And for the first time in the whole movie, that kid feels like, you know, feel normal and
Hmm.
like feeling accepted. And I think that's the lovely thing about that dynamic at the water park is they all accept each other. They're all weird. They're a
Yeah.
bunch of misfits. And, you know, it's so funny though. Like this kid wanders off and sneaks away from his family, and it's just like, what's he getting up to? He got a job,
Hmm.
and it's just like not what you would expect from a coming of age movie, where it's like this kid's way of rebelling is running off and working
Yeah.
during the summer. But like obviously he gets a lot out of that experience, and like the whole gags with like the water slide and stuff like that. But there's really like big emotional heartbreaking moments in this movie, because like that whole entire blow up at that like barbecue, just ugh, it's so uncomfortable. And when
Yeah.
Trent like throws the big low blow of bringing up Duncan's dad, and that's just like, ooh, you're a special kind of scummy in this scene, Trent.
Hmm.
And honestly, there's just so many stand like Allison Janney's really funny as the neighbor, and she's definitely like she's one of those neighbors who's definitely a fun time, but you probably don't want to clean up after her. 'Cause she's kind of a mess. But like
She's Allison Janney is a welcome presence to anything, honestly.
100%. Like she has that such great energy. It even won her an Oscar um for I, Tonya. And I love Toni Collette. She's so great in everything. And like, does his mom get a whole lot to do in this movie? Probably not, but like I think Toni Collette adds some depth there. And like you want one so bad for her to dump Trent,
Hmm.
because it's just like Toni Collette, we don't know much about you, but we know that you're better than this. And it's that kind of relationship, and you can buy into that. And even
Hmm.
the little romance with Anna Sophia Robb's character from next door, I like their moments together, and like their weird awkward kind of relationship, and her scaring him on top of the car singing was was he singing REO Speed
Ario
or
Speedwagon.
Speedwagon? And then dented Trent's car, which was like a little win for all of us because
Hmm.
Trent deserves it. But I guess what else, if anything, stood out to you, Jeff, about the way back?
Let me think. I mean, nothing else really stands out to me about this movie. I mean, it's just a fun watch. I like popping it in, every once in a while just to relive the first time I saw it again. Because I this is another movie that I recommended to a bunch of different people. I even watched it with a bunch of different people, and they were all like, "Oh, this is great. How did we not hear about this?"
I
Um,
think, yeah, I think the last thing for me to just bring up is the ending, and I think it balances not like having like the perfect little bow kind of ending, because like
yeah.
obviously his summer wraps up earlier than he wants, and he knows he has to like obviously it has like the big movie moment of the water slide thing,
Hmm.
but he says his goodbyes, and there's a nice bit of hope that Tony Collette's character is going to wake up and dump Trent.
Yeah.
So
The
you
only
love it.
the only the only maybe two things that I want to bring up as like my final take on
Okay.
this movie is um I don't understand the title of the film. Like I don't know how I don't know what the title of the film is supposed to mean. I don't care exactly, but I was just like, I don't know what the way back means.
It's the like the last row of the car, because like he sits
Oh,
all the way in the back,
okay,
which,
that was not made apparent to me.
well, I feel like it was funny because my wife brought that up when I was, because like I never really thought about what it meant, and then she's like, "Oh, he sits way back in the car." I'm like, "Oh, wait a minute," because like that has some significance at like the very
Yeah.
end of the film, and like that makes sense to me. But
Hmm.
yeah, I feel like I should have thought of that earlier, but
Well,
it
I
is
know.
what
I
it
feel like I should
is.
have thought of that before too, but I was just like, I don't know. I thought maybe because it was like the location of like where
Hmm.
everything's at, because like I mean it's taking place in like I think like the Hamptons or something,
Hmm.
and I and I guess you could call it like the back east because I guess they call like anywhere on the East Coast like the back east. I don't know. That was where my thought was going to it, but I still didn't know for sure at all.
God, it's that car.
Yeah,
Which I guess it's like that's one of the last things that you see at the end of the movie, so I guess that makes sense. And then
yeah,
what was the
that
other
makes
thing?
sense too. My other thing was what jobs do Tony Collette and Steve Carell have that they can take the entire summer off to go to the Hamptons and just chill? I'm like, what jobs do you have where you can actually do this? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Now, Steve Carell is definitely some kind of douchebag in like finance or something like that.
Oh, for yeah, that would make a lot of sense. But even like,
It
but
would
even
make a
Tony
lot
Collette,
of
like
sense.
they say like that she like they say throughout the film like, oh, she lives in like this 2 bedroom apartment and blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, she can't afford to take time off. Like, wow, that doesn't make any sense at all.
I this is just my guess because honestly, it's like the whole thing from like Home Alone, where over the years people were like, "What the Cowsters gonna afford
Yeah.
this giant ass house?" Because I never really thought about that, which it's a really good point. It's like, what the hell did the two of them do? And I
Hmm.
think it's more of a Trent thing because my I gather that Trent has money and probably was like, "Oh, forget about your job." And I feel like
Hmm.
that might be one of the other things that like relationships are complicated and there's red flags everywhere, but like is it the financial stability of Trent
Yeah.
giving her and her son financial stability? Because, it sounds like Duncan's dad's a deadbeat. So, like,
Yeah.
so that's an interesting point that I never actually really thought of. But no, my guess is 100% Trent works in finance on like Wall Street or something because he just seems like an asshole like that.
Oh yeah, like if he's got some house in the Hamptons where he can afford to go away for an entire summer. Because I mean, like they're there like throughout Fourth of July, and then like I don't know when
Yeah.
like this other like this like last party they go to where like the whole like ending happens. I'm not sure when that is exactly, but I'm like it's either a very small amount of time or a very like large amount of time, and I just don't
Mhm.
I can't tell which it is.
We just get caught up in all the fun of it. We don't think about the like, well, what about that?
Because
But
he
that
like
isn't
because
it.
like because this kid even like gets a job at the water park and he's like very welcomed by all these people
Yeah.
like at the I'm like it's either like if it's too short of a time it kind of doesn't make sense for the movie, but if it's a longer amount of time it still also doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't know.
It's either like, wow, they did a lot in like 5 days,
Yeah.
or like, why, how did they afford to do this all summer?
Hmm.
Um, hmm, interesting thoughts. And that's what you get here on the Wasteland retrospective. The important questions answered for you for all these movies. But Jeff, thank you so much for taking a double dip into some coming of age stories. Now it makes me feel like, wow, I'm so done with the snow and it being 32 degrees every day. But, just got to wait it out
Soon enough it'll be over.
soon. This feels like the first actual winter we've gotten in New Jersey in a few years. And now I'm so done with the snow. We're going to get more
Hmm.
snow on Sunday. It's literally snowing outside. It's recording. But as always, this was a fun time. Hopefully, you all enjoyed our discussion of these two films. Jeff and I will be back next month for a double dose of the Coen brothers. But most importantly, thank you for listening. And make sure to like, comment, and share. What are your like summer feel good movies? Like Summer Rental. That was definitely one I watched a lot growing up with some John Candy and a pirate ship. And then make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. We're always looking for more collaborators and new shows here on the SPM Crew Podcasting Network. We have a lot of great shows about film and television, music and sports, physical media, comics, and, just chatting about life. So make sure to check it out. And if you like our logo, check out High Flyer Creative for all of your digital marketing needs. But most importantly, thank you as always for tuning in and supporting the Wasteland Retrospective here on the SPM Crew Podcasting Network.